just want to invite the panel to have about 10 minutes of conversation.
I think they're on. So does anybody have a question? I have a question for Wilson. No, I just think that it's really interesting when you talk about the sort of people who, and we talked about this before, who don't pull their punches when they're going up against sort of like David and Goliath scenarios. And I would say that there are some times that when I would see Suzan engaged in, I guess, battle, where it's formidable. And do either of you have any examples of witnessing some of that epic fury that has propelled a lot of change on behalf of Native rights?
I think, having, as I mentioned, I think I've read everything Suzan's written on this area, which there's quite a volume of stuff. She's very, she's produced a lot of work, and my dad used to say she's got a brain the size of a mountain. So her work and her advocacy is the thing that separates her from some advocates who are willing to go into battle, is that she knows what she's talking about. She is well prepared. When she's on Oprah, she is not sitting there trying to think of something to say. Did you see the clip this morning? She sat there and said, I can't wait to answer that question. Oh, and say something stupid so I can respond to that. Because I'm already thinking not only about how to respond, but how to say so in an entertaining way. She said, I guess that one man said something about how much, if he had a couple of girlfriends, I can reproduce, and that was somehow related to the point she made. And she said, well, something about his focus on reproduction or something. Anyway, but she found some way to not only, she was prepared enough in her advocacy that she knew not only how to respond, but how to do so in a way that somebody might remember what she says. And so I think seeing her in battle, and that Oprah thing was just perfect, right? Is again, her knowledge of what she's talking about. She could say, okay, not only can I respond to this question of even Oprah talking about saying honest Injun and apologizing for it. Suzan knew exactly how to say that, but also in TV bites, right? Bite-sized pieces for people in television. Because it's difficult sometimes if you're to make an argument or respond to something when you're used to kind of long-form discussion. But she was ready for that to go into that kind of battle in a way that was just particularly effective.
I work in the field of Native arts and cultures, and another area in which she's formidable is the definition of who is an Indian artist, as we begin to talk about. And she's not afraid to name names or call people out, because some of those names that she's named are making a lot of money by proclaiming that they are a Native scholar or a Native artist. And so I appreciate having someone who's not afraid to pull any punches when it comes to that. And she and others were very thoughtful as they worked on the amendments to the Indian Arts and Craft Act to create that third opportunity. So if you're not a citizen of a federally recognized tribe or state recognized tribe, there is that third area where you could be certified as a tribal artist. However, what I most appreciate about that third criteria is that it's still the essence of the sovereignty remains with the indigenous nation, with the Native nation, who determines as a governmental entity whether or not a person is considered an Indian artist for the purposes of the act. Because we all know that if Indian identity had a Facebook relationship status, it would be called It's Complicated. So I was really pleased to hear some of the words that you were sharing, because I think this is a growing challenge today as there's more and more intermarriage and understanding how systems such as blood quantum were imposed onto Native nations, and some of us have internalized those and used those very same systems. What will it mean for us as we look to the future of who is a member, who is a citizen of our nation? And tribes are approaching that in very interesting ways, but I think that's one of our number one challenges as we look to the future. So I really appreciate you having brought that up and explored that a little bit more deeply.
Well, I'll ask Jodi a question. When you were in the White House and you were there was discussion about who can we honor. Was there any discussion when we said, what about Suzan Harjo? Was there a discussion that said, okay, we're going to get in, if we want to honor Suzan Harjo, keep in mind, she's been one of the hard drivers. She's been unrelenting. She has said things that not everybody likes, that people on Oprah see what she said and how she presented that, and some people it makes them uncomfortable. Did you have a discussion about that? Or could we do someone that's less controversial because they're not as direct or as controversial? Was there a discussion about that?
There was a little bit of a discussion, and I think it wasn't depending on how you think about world politics. I mean, the stuff that Suzan has done is not as controversial when you have some of the people she stood with, and I'm not going to name names, but have had really strong reactions to what the United States has done in their own countries, in some of the positions that they had taken, could seem anti-American. And so that was kind of more of the focus than is she too controversial to be standing. And I named a certain TV personality because there's history there on the mascot issue between Suzan and some national media. And there's a lot of so I would say that the discussion wasn't really focused on that so much as it related to her. And I think the people in the White House are at that time, not now, were very cognizant that in order to make change, I mean, I don't think that there was very much a focus on controversy. I mean, that's kind of how change is made sometimes. That friction gets released and then things change. I mean, that's just how the friction that Suzan's not afraid to make, and a lot of other people are. But I do want to point out before we wrap up. I did see Suzan in a great state of urgency, and it's something that you wouldn't consider very urgent in the temporal sense, because I was working with her on Our Visions, the Next 500 Years conference, and this was something we did at the quincentenary in 1992. There was such energy. I have never seen so much energy poured into a gathering ever in my life, and I was her only staff on that. And as we concluded the writing of the vision for the next 500 years, and it's something that everybody should take a look at, she convened the greatest thinkers in Indian country, the wisdom keepers, artists, Oren Lyons, Vine Deloria. There were so many people, medicine people, who came together in Taos. And I was able to witness what I saw as a bear spirit in Suzan. And I think that as a Cheyenne woman, her ability to transform into that bear that I saw is something that she is able to take into battle with people like Dan Snyder, people who are not respectful and who are willing to fight with her. They probably don't even know what they're dealing with. They're dealing with a really strong and powerful person with just a ton of spirit and conviction. And I don't think I don't want to say David and Goliath too many times, because she really has no fear of the giants. She doesn't see them as giants, because I think she understands herself as a Cheyenne woman so deeply.
Well, I would like to thank you for the fearlessness on this panel and the life's work that you've done. Before we break and reconvene at 3:05, Suzan, you've been here for us. Suzan, we're here for you. I would like everybody to stand and greet and thank our incomparable matriarch, Suzan. Thank you. So we'll be back here at 3:05 to continue this conversation and thought.